Namaste. Today we are going to watch America is Not Europe. So, as Indians, we always look up to America. Like, okay, America is a country that has done all these things and like it is the biggest and the best country in the world. So, you have to follow that. But, yeah, the more we read about European countries, the more we understand, okay, those are the standards that we need to expect. And this video, I think so, it will tell us about like how different America is from Europe and also how better Europe is from America. So let's see what they tell about in this video.
And definitely the culture of the Europe is totally different from the America, because American people do believe in some things and European believe in others. So definitely the culture, the food, the opinion of the people going to be different, definitely. And yes, I'm also so much excited to see that is Europe has more power than America, or is a development more in Europe as compared to America, because there is a taboo that America is very popular, is very powerful, it's very developed, but it is not, but maybe this video will break those rumors, will break our taboos which we have regarding America. Maybe there is a more development as compared to the America in Europe. And definitely I am also so much excited to see that the culture of the Europe. So yeah, let's watch the video.
Yes, I think so. It will be a very interesting and knowledgeable video to watch. So let's start the video.
I was born and grew up in Denmark. And these are countries where the government spends taxes and spends approximately twice the level of the United States. And while I am very sympathetic to many of your spending proposals, especially on the things you mentioned on early childhood and single payer and the like, I also know that these are countries that heavily tax everybody, not just the rich people. Middle classes, they have consumption taxes on everything of 20%.
Oh.
So while I'm very sympathetic to what you say, my sense is still that you would like to spend as a Scandinavian, but not tax as one.
Yeah.
We have, the answer is, and you raised some very good points.
Comparing the US with Europe and countries in Europe would be naive, oversimplistic, and offend a bunch of people. Land masses are complex. But I'm going to go ahead and compare them anyways, because some of the comparisons between Europe and the US remain way too superficial.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
It's not uncommon to obsess over the usual suspects for why the US is less equal than Europe and also has less good quality, affordable social programs. The analysis is simple. The US has more billionaires and taxes them less. Europe has less billionaires, but taxes them more.
Oh.
Need a larger tax base to fund popular social programs and also less inequality? Just raise the taxes on the rich, like the Europeans do. Now, although the tax rates for rich people explain some part of the difference, it doesn't explain enough. Europeans can afford good social programs because a lot of Europeans pay a lot for them, mainly through indirect taxes. And Europeans are also more equal before taxes even factored in, because a lot of the social programs they pay more for also reduce pre-tax inequality.
Okay.
But the US has, so far, been unable to adopt the same. Why? Well, in part because taxing the wealthiest of society is easier to advertise and justify than taxing everybody a lot more.
Oh.
In Europe, most people don't really need to be convinced about paying for their welfare states because it works sufficiently for most of them. But in the US, there's an intimate struggle with deciding whether pre-distribution will be a state, local, or federal solution. Part of the reason is that in the US, the federal government gets the most media attention, while state and local governments can avoid scrutiny. This means that minimum wage hikes in the US are practically always seen as a responsibility for the federal government, which has to delicately balance different costs of living, like laborers living in New York City and miners living in West Virginia.
Oh, this is the same problem in India. People are like, okay, you should tax all the rich people, and why should we, all the middle class and the lower class, should suffer from the taxes? But if tomorrow our government says that, okay, we are going to tax everyone like the double, like, okay, if you are getting taxed at 10%, now 20%, I think so many Indians would revolt and they would come to the streets against the government. The government can't do that because yes, as he was saying, like it is easier to say that tax the rich and everybody will support it, but taxing everybody is something that just burns the fire. And in India also there are not many people who give income tax. So there are about 80-90% who do not like give income tax. So there are and still there are a lot of people who earn a lot more and they do not pay even a single rupee as a tax. So this just shows that there is a lack of inequality in gaining tax. That is why there are lack of social programs. So yes, Europe is ahead because everybody is paying equal and like more the amount of as much tax as they can. So due to which those social programs are doing very well.
And I also do believe that when we talk about the equality, so it means that we should be equal in everywhere regarding the tax or regarding to the rights. So yes, I also do believe that whether you are rich, poor or the middle class, you should give tax to the government because it is very important in the development of any nation. But yes, in India, as Parvin said, there are some people who who doesn't give income tax, and there are also people who don't fill the RTR, which is totally wrong because they are not showing the government that how much they are earning and how much where they are spending their money. So sometimes they also got they also got income tax rate in India, which is which they don't like, but it is only because of their fault. If they gonna show the government that what they are earning or how much they are and if they are giving tax to the government, then why would they get the rate of the income tax? So yeah, definitely we should have a equal tax everywhere.
In Europe, though, a country like France or Denmark can opt for different geographically sensitive policy while also being held more directly into account because the assignment of responsibility is clearer to its citizens.
There's this definition of a wicked problem, which is circulating around in the literature, which suggests that a wicked problem is wicked if it has so many dimensions to it that you can't go at one angle to the problem and try to fix it. And I think school finance is like that. So school districts get money from their local communities in the form of property taxes. They'll also get money from the state, and the state might give them money through multiple formulas. And then a portion, a much smaller portion, about 9 or 10%, comes from the federal government. So even if you tried to solve the problem at, say, the state level, there are these other funding sources that come with their own restrictions, which ultimately affect how the money gets used in schools.
In Connecticut, a U.S. state, a school in Bridgeport will be poorer by virtue of being surrounded by poor properties, while a school in Greenwich will be richer because it is surrounded by richer properties. This is because local taxes are largely funded by property values in the area. However, this concept fails to explain everything. Educational disparities also exist across Europe and within its countries. The US is not unique for having a system that predisposes poor children to poor resources. Education systems are complex. Finland is not the same as Sweden, and resources invested in education and the quality that follows does not seem like a linear relationship. The US's unique situation is that its quality does not match the amount that the US actually spends on it. One of the problems with answering why resources don't match the quality you would expect in the US is because the decentralized nature of school districts makes it pretty difficult to actually identify what spending works and what doesn't. Overall, there are some indications that, compared with Europe, the amount of staffing, the associated health and retirement benefits, alongside transportation, all add up to more cost for the American education system. But the differences don't end there.
In the 1990s, as the crime rate was plummeting, as American life was getting safer and safer, Americans freaked out and thought that if they take their eyes off their children, the children will be abducted. Now this goes back, the fear was stoked by cable TV in the 1980s. There were a few high-profile abductions. But it's not until the 1990s that we really start locking kids up and saying, you cannot be outside until you're 14 or 15. We took this essential period of childhood from about 8 to 12, when kids throughout history have practiced independence, have gotten into adventures, have made rafts and floated down the Mississippi River. We took that period and said, you don't get to practice independence until it's too late, until that period is over.
Kids in the US are raised differently than kids in Europe. Some blame the planning that produced more isolated American families, some the over-paranoia towards kidnapping in the 1980s, and others point to an increasingly competitive environment where parents try to give their children an edge over the others by helicoptering them.
Oh.
It's really not that far a stretch to say that many European children could be considered to have more freedom at an earlier age. American
That could
children
be the
are less
case.
likely to be able to walk to school alone compared with European children, which you can of course connect to overall crime rates, and authoritative school policy is still much more accepted across the US than it is in Europe.
So, the real key to the distinctiveness of America is the structure of our government. One part of it, of course, is the independence of the judiciary. But there's a lot more. There are very few countries in the world, for example, that have a bicameral legislature. Oh, England has a House of Lords for the time being, but the House of Lords has no substantial power. They can just make the Commons pass a bill a second time. France has a Senate, it's honorific. Italy has a Senate, it's honorific. Very few countries have two separate bodies in the legislature equally powerful. That's a lot of trouble, as you gentlemen doubtless know, to get the same language through two different bodies elected in a different fashion. Very few countries in the world have a separately elected chief executive. Sometimes I go to Europe to talk about separation of powers. And when I get there, I find that all I'm talking about is independence of the judiciary. Because the Europeans don't even try to divide the two political powers, the two political branches, the legislature and the chief executive. In all of the parliamentary countries, the chief executive is the creature of the legislature. There's never any disagreement
In India too.
between them and the prime minister, as there is sometimes between you and the president. When there's a disagreement, they just kick them out. They have a no confidence vote, a new election, and they get a prime minister who agrees with the legislature. And, the Europeans.
The difference is simple. European countries are mainly nations, not federations. A European state, if it existed, could never be the same as the US.
Yeah.
Written in their constitution, US states are modeled after the federal government, and state governments, which mirror the one above, usually have their own Chamber of Representatives, a Senate, and also have an executive mirrored after their president. In Europe, if there was any state that was above the countries that made it up, it would have to be modeled from those very different countries beneath it, rather than serving as a model for the countries below
Oh,
it.
nice.
This is an important difference because it means that any kind of European government that hopefully pleases each one sufficiently. All in all, although the differences between the two are practically endless and somewhere near impossible to actually describe, it's still a worthwhile effort to try and figure a few out and also discuss them. In some way, Europe has more breathing room to understand what it wants to be, which is no easy task, because whatever you think Europe is, it can still look across the Atlantic and realize what it definitely is not.
Yes.
Seriously, this video was so informative. We got to know a lot of things about the America and the Europe, and the most important, the difference between the Europe and the America is the tax. Basically, in Europe there is an equal tax for the everybody, but it is not same in the America. The rich has to give the more tax, and the middle class has to give the tax which they could give, which they can give basically. And we also got to know that in basically in America, children do not has a freedom that much as compared to the Europe. Basically in Europe, children can go alone to the school, but it is not same in the America because of the crime rate and because of the school policies too. Basically they have to go with their parents, but it is not same in the Europe. From this video we also got to know that the crime rate of the America is more as compared to the Europe. So basically we can say that it is not only important that if the country is rich or the poor, the rule and regulation is also plays a very important role in any nation, and that how it basically and the crime rate also make a huge difference in any nation. If the country is very powerful financially, if it is very powerful, and if the crime rate but if the crime rate of that nation is so increasing day by day, and if any nation who is not doing that much good financially, but the crime rate is low, then definitely the nation who has low crime rate gonna be a good good or the best nation as compared to the financial powerful nation. So yeah, I really enjoyed this video.
And the thing is, like the tax, one thing I completely agree with that. Okay, the US citizens will not pay like the same amount of tax, and they will not agree to it at all, and that the person who will promise it will always lose the elections. So it is not a good thing to do, and the same is with India also. And but other things you can say that okay, I feel like Europeans are also not too much involved in politics also, these kind of things. They're too much involved in their own things and how they need to work it out. And also the thing is, politicians are not too corrupt also, I feel like, as well, because there are too many power states. And I think so that is what he was talking about in the video. Like there are too many powers, like there is a federal power, then there is senate power, then there are state powers. So due to which there are a lot of people who can be power hungry or can be corrupt. In India it is the same. We have a lot of people like mayors, then we have state government, local government, and all the different type of governments. So they can be power hungry or corrupt at the same point of time. So yeah, I can completely agree to it. And Europe is, I think so, we should follow Europe from now onwards. India and all should understand, okay, this is the end goal that we need to reach. So what do you guys think about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So do like, share, and
Subscribe.
bye.